The day the world ended. I was eating hot pot and singing to myself. I snapped a picture of the cheerfully burning stove and posted it to my Instagram story with the caption, "Snowy days call for hot pot." I made sure the post was visible only to my neighbors. "Just kill me and get it over with," I had begged them. "It's so cold. My body won't even rot." I shot up in bed. The pain gone. The biting cold that had seeped into my bones was gone. The hunger. The treachery. The bloody hunt for survival. All of it was gone. I was alive. In my own bed. Wiping the cold sweat from my forehead. I grabbed my phone. It was 3:30 a.m. on September 27th. This was the 25th day of my new life. In 5 days, the apocalyptic freeze would begin. Yes. I had died once. I was killed by my own stupid, bleeding heart. In the summer of 2023, after a season of scorching heat waves and rolling blackouts, a long-awaited cool front finally arrived. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But the temperature just kept dropping. The refreshing cool turned into a relentless, deep cold. After days of non-stop blizzards, it felt like the world had been frozen solid. The power grids failed. The water stopped running. People were trapped in their homes, starving and freezing. As a freelancer who worked from home, I was a natural hermit. I had a habit of stockpiling food and water. Seeing my neighbor suffering from hunger and cold, I foolishly opened my door. The next thing I knew, my apartment was looted. When they had devoured everything edible, they turned their hungry eyes on me. Maybe the hatred in my eyes was so intense as I died that fate decided to give me a second chance, sending me back 2 months. At that point, there was only a month until the deep freeze. Time was tight. Swallowing my burning rage, I put on a perfect act for my neighbors. I wanted revenge. But first, I needed to figure out how to survive the lethal cold. My parents died when I was young, and I was raised by my grandfather. He left me a decent sum of money when he passed 2 years ago, which I'd put into CDs and investment accounts. I cashed everything out. Then I found a real estate agent and told him I needed to rent a top-floor apartment. My criteria were simple: it had to be large, a penthouse, have utilities connected, and be completely unfinished. And because I cherished my quiet, the fewer residents in the building, the better. The agent happened to have the perfect listing. Coincidentally, it was in the building right across the street from my own, a brand new high-rise that had just been completed the month before. It was a 30th floor duplex penthouse. The owner had bought it as an investment and had no plans to live there. Though it was a raw, unfinished space, the construction quality was excellent. The concrete walls and floors were smooth and level. And it was huge. The main floor had a 4-bedroom, 2 living room, 1 kitchen, and 2-bathroom layout. The upper floor had 3 bedrooms, a living room, and a bathroom, plus a massive 2,000 square foot terrace that was only accessible from my unit. I gave it a quick look and paid 2 years' rent up front. The rent for an unfurnished place like this was practically a steal. As soon as the lease was signed, I hired a contractor for some simple, yet not so simple, renovations. First, I replaced all the doors and windows. The terrace and main entrance were fitted with blast doors. These doors offered superior sealing and insulation, minimizing air exchange with the outside and providing excellent thermal retention. They also wouldn't warp under pressure. For the interior rooms, regular doors were fine. All the windows were replaced with quadruple pane glass. Next, I had the walls fully insulated. The workers were curious about what I was doing. I lied and said I was setting up a live streaming studio and was worried about noise complaints. Thankfully, soundproofing and thermal insulation use similar materials. So they bought my story, even praising me for being so considerate. I also had a door installed at the top of the staircase leading to the upper floor. This would reduce air circulation between the levels, further improving heat retention. The walls were given a simple coat of white paint, and the floor of the room I chose as my bedroom was sealed with polished concrete. Against the window side wall, I installed a wood-burning stove that could be used for both heating and cooking. In the kitchen and bathrooms, after applying 3 thick coats of waterproofing sealant, I had the basic fixtures and appliances installed. With that done, it was time to buy supplies. A lot of them. Firewood was easy to find and wasn't expensive. However, I worried that a massive delivery of wood would raise questions I couldn't answer. I paid the supplier extra to have the wood cut to my specified lengths, packed into cardboard boxes, and then delivered. That way, if anyone asked, I could just say they were renovation materials. Firewood, charcoal, fire pits, propane tanks and stoves, solid fuel tablets, solar panels and chargers, emergency lights, heavy blackout curtains, bottled water, grains, oils, seasonings, all kinds of household goods, semi-prepared meals, instant foods, snacks, a bed, a table. An endless stream of supplies flowed into the apartment. Because the building was brand new, there were very few residents. Most people coming and going were construction crews. The security guard at the front desk saw people hauling large boxes in and out all day and paid no mind. The building manager stopped by a couple of times, but seeing that I was only doing simple renovations and not altering the building's structure, he left me alone. So, with almost no effort, I managed to pack both floors of the penthouse to the brim, completely undetected. I had enough food, water, and other necessities to last me for 2 years locked inside. I didn't know how long the freeze would last, so I stockpiled as much as I possibly could. If I didn't use it all, I could always sell it later. After all this, with 1 week to go until the cold snap, I returned to my old apartment building. I spent 2 days moving my most important belongings from there to the penthouse. Looking at the mountains of supplies and the simple but cozy bedroom I'd set up, I was filled with a profound sense of security. This time, I would survive. But no matter how hard I tried to suppress it, the nightmares of my past life always returned. The cruelty of my neighbors would ambush me in my most vulnerable moments, leaving me drenched in sweat and screaming in the dark. Thinking of those vicious, wolf-like good neighbors, I slowly clenched my fists. Only 5 days left. My dear, sweet neighbors, your comfortable days are numbered. Don't you worry. Everything you gave me in our last life, I'm going to return to you 100-fold. The sun rose, bringing with it a noticeable chill in the air. People were already wearing sweaters and jackets outside. Many grumbled about how quickly the weather had turned. I picked up my phone and ordered breakfast from DoorDash, then slowly got out of bed to get ready to facilitate my revenge plot. I was still staying here for these last few days. Soon, My breakfast arrived. I ate at a leisurely pace before finally heading out. My first stop was the apartment across the hall. A married couple lived there. And they were utterly detestable. I rarely saw the wife. But the husband was a lazy scumbag who would stare at me every time we crossed paths, sending me rushing inside to lock my door. But my timidity only emboldened him. He started knocking on my door, asking if I wanted to be with him. Furious, I called the police and informed the building management and his wife. I thought his wife would rein him in. But instead, she screamed at me, accusing me of seducing her husband. The police intervention did make him back off a bit. He'd still loiter by my door. But he didn't dare try anything more overt. Until the deep freeze hit. I remember clearly, he was the first one to walk toward me with a knife. Fine. An eye for an eye. The door opened. It was an old woman, the man's mother. She had just moved in recently. And her greatest joy in life was petty theft. If she didn't come home with something she hadn't paid for, she felt like she'd lost something. She'd even stolen the welcome mat from my front door. The old woman shot me a nasty, sidelong glance. "What do you want?" I smiled sweetly. "Hi, ma'am. The grocery store across the street is having a big sale today. 20% off everything." I figured with the weather getting colder, prices on everything are about to go up. So I wanted to make sure you knew. Really? The old woman's eyes lit up. I nodded. You should hurry. There's already a huge crowd. Oh. I added. Don't tell anyone else. If too many people go, you might not get any of the cheap eggs. In my past life, that supermarket had a quiet anniversary sale for members. Not many people in our building knew about it. I'd stumbled upon it by chance and bought a lot. I knew that old woman would go. Sure enough. A few minutes later, I saw her heading out, pulling her little shopping cart. Go on. Go on. Buy a lot. How else will you have enough to feed everyone in the building? After duping her, I went downstairs to visit a pair of young women. Before the apocalypse, we had gotten along quite well since we were around the same age. In my past life, it was these two who had invited me to go to that supermarket sale with them. Because of the sale and my habit of stockpiling, I bought a ton that day. A week into the blizzard, when many families had run out of food, it was these two who pointed me out in the residents' group chat. They wrote, "Maya has a lot of supplies." Then followed up with a faux innocent. "Maya, could you share some with the neighbors?" Back then, I was a world-class idiot. I didn't realize they were morally blackmailing me. I had no concept of how critical supplies would become in such extreme weather. I happily agreed. After I opened my door and shared my stockpile, it was them again, who innocently reminded everyone that I definitely had more stashed away, inciting the mob to ransack my home. In the end, when the hungry crowd turned on me, it was because of a suggestion from them. So this time, I wouldn't let them off the hook. "Maya. It's you." The door opened. It was Candy. "Where have you been? We haven't seen you at all." Mona pouted from behind her. "You promised you'd take us out for hot pot." It was Sunday, so they were both home. I dug my fingernails into my arm, the one hidden behind my back, just to stop myself from lunging forward and strangling them. Forcing a smile through my disgust, I said, "Sorry. Hot pot will have to wait. I'm broke right now. But I'm working on a project. And the payment should come through by next week. I'll treat you guys to an all-you-can-eat seafood buffet then. Their faces fell at first, but lit up again when they heard seafood buffet. Really? Awesome. In the year I'd known them, they had treated me to one slice of watermelon and one cup of bubble tea. Every other time, I paid. Their reasoning was that I was a freelancer. So I had money. And they could just leech off me. And I was such a soft-hearted, clueless fool that I never minded being their personal ATM. Never realizing I was just enabling them. I told them to get changed and come to the supermarket with me. They needed to go anyway. So they agreed. At the store, they bought toiletries while I bought nothing but food and drinks. The supplies in my penthouse were already more than enough. This was just bait for the trap I was setting. I timed our return trip perfectly. As we entered the complex, we ran into a group of gossiping old ladies. Then, at the entrance to our building, we saw the guy from the second floor washing his car. I made a point of greeting everyone cheerfully, intentionally letting them see the massive amount of groceries we were carrying. My past life had taught me exactly who would be where at what time. In the elevator, I told Candy and Mona I wanted to hang out at their place for a bit. Since I'd bought so many snacks, we could just eat those. They jumped at the chance for free food and agreed immediately. As they unlocked their door, I enthusiastically handed a box of chocolates to the child of their next-door neighbor. Yes. I knew this family always left their door open in the morning to air out their apartment. This was all part of the plan. The mom took the gift and was very polite. "Oh. You went shopping? Look at all the stuff you bought." I smiled and gestured with my hands. "Oh. This is theirs." I had deliberately carried only one very small bag for them. So Candy and Mona thought I was referring to that. But to the mother, it looked like I was talking about the entire haul. This was exactly the effect I wanted. Once inside their apartment, I generously opened the snacks I'd bought and let them feast. As lunchtime approached, I suddenly frowned. Oh. Shoot. I just remembered I have to run an errand. Can I leave my stuff here for now? I'll come back for it later. Of course. They didn't object. It meant they could keep eating my food. After all, I never cared about things like that. So, I had their neighbor, the mom, watch me leave their apartment empty-handed. After leaving the building, I went straight to a security supply store and bought several small, easy-to-install high-definition cameras and some solar battery packs. First, I went back to my penthouse. I installed cameras covering the front door, the hallway, and the terrace. The building was on a main road, and the camera on the terrace had a clear view of the street and the entrance to my old apartment complex. I had really come to love this terrace. At 30 stories high, and with the perimeter lined with a screen of artificial bamboo, I could move around without any fear of being seen. After dark, I returned to my old building. I knocked on Candy and Mona's door and picked up my things. I didn't take the elevator. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs from their floor to mine. It wasn't tiring. I put the groceries in my apartment, then quickly went back down the stairs and took the elevator up from a lower floor. This was just so the elevator's security camera would record me returning empty-handed. It was after 9 p.m. All the doors were closed. Besides the elevator camera, no one saw me. Back in my apartment, I checked the groceries. As expected, they'd eaten a good amount. Let them eat. Soon, they wouldn't have anything to eat at all. I'd taken a nap at the penthouse that afternoon, so I wasn't sleepy. I turned on the TV, opened a bag of chips, and put on a show, waiting for midnight to pass. Then, I went out with the cameras. I had already connected them to the solar battery packs. I had also scouted the locations long ago, one for my front door, one for Candy and Mona's, and another in the 6th floor hallway. I remembered very clearly what the man in the East Side unit on the 6th floor had done to me. These were all high-definition cameras, placed in inconspicuous spots. You'd never find them unless you were looking for them. For power. In addition to the solar batteries, I also wired them to the hallway lights. The solar batteries were also rechargeable, so as long as there was power, they would charge. It was a double layer of insurance. I remembered clearly from my past life, after the freeze hit, the power would go out. But not for good. It would come back intermittently, every few days. After setting everything up, I went home, showered, and went to sleep. When I woke up, it was already after 2 p.m. the next day. The weather was getting colder. I checked my phone. The temperature had dropped to 42 degrees Fahrenheit. People were wearing sweaters and winter coats outside. My social media feed was full of people complaining about how cold it was and how strange the weather was this year. Someone joked, "Is this the apocalypse?" Someone else lamented, "The planet is in such bad shape. We really did this to ourselves." Some joked. Some sighed. But no one realized that the disaster had already begun. I tossed my phone aside and got up. I had no intention of warning anyone. After seeing the depths of human evil, my heart had become as hard as iron. I had used the building's online groups to add many of my neighbors, especially those in my stairwell. I even joined the building's mom group. Shedding my usual hermit-like persona, I started hanging out with the stay-at-home moms who didn't have to go to work. I treated them to meals and coffee. My generosity and warmth quickly earned me an excellent reputation in the building. The 4th day marked the beginning of a long holiday weekend. Late that night, when no one was around, I moved the last of my belongings from my old apartment to the penthouse, my blankets, the last of the food I'd bought, and my remaining books and personal items. The temperature was already below freezing. Everyone was asleep. Even the security guard at the complex gate was huddled inside his booth. Before I left for good, I slipped another printed letter under the door of the young couple who lived above me. My tone was urgent and serious, telling them this was not a prank and I was not being an alarmist. I urged them to go stock up on supplies tomorrow. Then lock their doors and windows. Not interact with any neighbors. Not go outside. And, under no circumstances, let anyone know they had food. They were the only ones who hadn't harmed me in my past life. The wife had even tried to plead for me, before her husband dragged her back inside. I didn't blame her husband. He was just trying to keep them both alive. Unfortunately, it seemed they didn't believe me. I had slipped them a note 3 days ago, but there had been no sign of activity from their apartment. Tomorrow was their last chance. Tomorrow night, the temperature would plummet to dozens of degrees below zero. A blizzard would seal the doors overnight. No one would be able to move. The catastrophe would begin. It was 2 a.m. by the time I got back to the penthouse. I took a hot shower and slipped into my warm bed. The mattress was one I'd spent ages picking out. And it was incredibly comfortable. I fell into a deep, heavy sleep. Maybe it was because everything was finally settled. But I slept soundly. Without a single dream. I don't know how long I was asleep when a frantic, violent knocking on the door jolted me awake. I shot up, instinctively ready to run to the door. But the moment my body left the warmth of the covers, a shiver ran through me. And I snapped back to reality. I had moved here in secret. No one knew I was even done with the renovations. The building management wouldn't come knocking. Who could it be? I tiptoed back into the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and pulled up the security camera feed. My breath caught in my throat.